it's like a mutually assured destruction, right? This is me speaking as a political analyst. Okay, I'm about to say something, but let me just issue a disclaimer here. I love Joe Biden. He's an amazing guy. He's been kind to me for 7+ years throughout the time that I've known him. But I'm just thinking, any other Democrat would clobber Trump. It wouldn't even be close. But Biden wouldn't be able to defeat any other Republican. Do you see the issue that we have? It's like, who's going to disarm first?
Yeah.
It's just crazy. We're in crazy times right now. And any other moderate Republican would probably defeat President Biden. It's like, do you see the situation here?
Let's just take a couple of minutes to consider President Joe Biden, who has given a set-piece TV interview a week after that disastrous debate performance. He was speaking to George Stephanopoulos of ABC News. Top of the agenda then, could anything lead to Joe Biden standing aside as the candidate?
If you can be convinced that you cannot defeat Donald Trump, will you stand down?
Well, it depends if the Lord Almighty comes out and tells me that, I might do that.
Well, let's speak to Lindy Li, a Democrat political strategist who sits on the President's National Finance Committee. Lindy, welcome to the programme.
Thank you so much for having me,
It's
sir.
a pleasure to speak to you. So there's a kind of consideration here in terms of how Joe Biden conveyed himself in this sit-down interview for about 20 minutes. It was recorded, but it was also broadcast a little ahead of what had originally been planned. There was a kind of suggestion that he was still quite meandering in his answers without perhaps committing any major gaffes. Would you agree with that assessment?
Well, I think he actually gave a robust performance today. We have to keep in mind that prior to the interview, he had just spoken with 1,000 people in Wisconsin. So he had flown from Washington to Wisconsin, then did the ABC interview, and then he's going to do a series of events, including here in my hometown of Philadelphia, where I'll be joining him. And then he has an event in Harrisburg, which is 6 hours away. So this is one thing out of another. He's on a tour de force. He's really doing everything he can to prove to the American people that he is up to the job, that he can transcend any doubts.
Do you feel any level of concern at all?
I'm not here to gaslight anybody. We did last week, right? So I'm not here to paint a different picture. I just think that he is proving that what we saw at the debate was an episode. It wasn't a condition. It wasn't a chronic issue. It was something that he had a bad cold. And we've seen reporting come through in the last couple of days that it was actually a pretty bad cold. He had a sore throat. On the last day, he had to cram so many things into that final day in order to make up for the day that he lost due to the cold. And prior to the debate prep, he had traveled to Europe, not once, but twice. So, it was a whirlwind for him. And I think everyone owes him a little bit of compassion because he is really just trying really hard. And the schedule that he's maintaining would be hard for me. And I just turned 33. So,
Yeah, I hear you. I wonder, Lindy, you have got huge experience in fundraising for Joe Biden. In fact, don't you raise absolutely huge amounts of money for President Biden and his campaign?
Yeah, I actually just co-hosted him myself on May 1st. It was the first time I ever hosted any American president, so it was amazing. We raised $1.1 million in 6 days, and let me tell you, as someone in their early 30s, it's hard.
Yeah,
and it really was. And but we did it, and he was incredibly gracious and kind to my family. He's just such a kind and compassionate man.
Okay, so that fundraiser was in May, did you say? So I'm wondering if that level of fundraising is holding out at this point, because I've been reading but there are some financial backers who are kind of holding off or even cancelling fundraising events. That must be a cause of concern.
Hey, I understand where they're coming from, but I'm also pretty impressed by the numbers that are coming through, especially this past weekend, right after the debate. I mean, the days immediately following the debate. We had a gangbusters quarter. We have $240 million in cash on hand, which is more than ever. It's just absolutely astounding. And I do want to point out that due to the fundraising agreements, the only candidate that's been bandied about as a possible replacement, the only candidate who's eligible to take that $240 million is Kamala Harris.
Okay.
Nobody else's name is on that agreement. And we have very stringent FEC regulations that stipulate who and what the money can be used for.
That's really interesting, because that was a conversation in the aftermath of the debate, would be what would happen to any fundraising money. Okay.
Exactly. And I'm in the nitty gritty. So I have the financial statements, like I'm really familiar with it. But most Americans, they just think that you can swap in another candidate and everything's going to be hunky dory. But it doesn't work like that, because there's so many legalese and niceties that, we are bound by.
Do you sort of acknowledge, Lindy, that even the fact this conversation about Biden's fitness to be candidate exists is problematic? It is something of a PR issue for the Democratic Party, and so turning back that message is actually quite difficult. But its existence in the first place is problematic.
It is problematic. I'm being very real with you, and I tell the truth as I see it. I also think it's kind of unfair that no one's really pointing out that Trump confused Pelosi with Nikki Haley 4 times. He confused Biden with Obama at least 7 times. Yes, I am keeping track. And my favorite one, you got to give Trump points for humor. He actually meant this in earnest. He said that Americans dominated the airports during the Revolutionary War.
Right.
Or so exactly, or as you would have it, the War of American Secession, I think. But yeah,
There weren't many airports at that point in history, I think,
exactly.
is the point. Yeah.
I think the number of airports during that era was exactly 0. So I'm interested that no one's really pointing out his many gaffes.
I wonder if that comes back to, we've obviously just concluded our general election in the UK, and in one of the TV debates, one audience member now quite famously asked, "Are you two the best candidates we've got?" And it feels like that is perhaps part of the conversation in the US at this stage. It
is. It's almost like it's like a mutually assured destruction, right? This is me speaking as a political analyst. I'm about to say something, but let me just issue a disclaimer here. I love Joe Biden. He's an amazing guy. He's been kind to me for 7+ years throughout the time that I've known him. But I'm just thinking, any other Democrat would clobber Trump. It wouldn't even be close. But Biden wouldn't be able to defeat any other Republican. Do you see the issue that we have? It's like, who's going to disarm first?
Yeah.
It's just crazy. We're in crazy times right now. And, any other moderate Republican would probably defeat President Biden. It's like, do you see the situation here?
Yeah, I do. And I think that converse reality there, as you say, on the Republican side, is actually that if they had perhaps a more capable candidate, then Biden would be done at this point in the campaign. Lindy, it's so fascinating speaking to you. Let's keep in touch, please, during the course of the presidential campaign. That is Lindy Li, a Democratic political strategist who, as you've heard there, knows Joe Biden, sits on his National Finance Committee, and so knows the money side of things, which is so crucially important in presidential elections. She knows it inside out.